Hey guys, it's Kelly from Kelly's Astrology here. In honor of my next online astrology class, which is starting Monday, October 30th, it's on chart interpretation and personality. Basically, how we use astrology charts to figure out our stuff, who we are, what we're good at, where our challenges might come from. So this 4-week online class is starting Monday, October 30. And in honor of that, I wanted to share 3 tips for chart interpretation. So I know, having taught astrology students over the years, that figuring out how to interpret a chart takes a bit of time, takes a bit of practice, and part of the skill is learning how to pull everything together. Often it's overwhelming when you first look at a birth chart. There are lots of different pieces at play. And so a good starting point is to work through what I call the three keys to chart interpretation. So the first key has to do with the ascendant. And this is the key that I think really unlocks the whole chart. And so considering the ascendant sign, of course, is going to be important, but especially consider the ruling planet of the ascendant. What I like to do is create a blend of an interpretation of those two things. What are the qualities and the keywords of the ascendant? What is the ascendant looking for? That's really what is moving you forward, or where your first instincts come from. The way you go about that, or the kind of topics that you really want to do that ascendant sign energy in, will have to do with the house placement of the ruling planet of your ascendant. So I know it sounds complicated, but if you try to interweave a narrative just with those two pieces, you will start to create what I call the life theme. So the ascendant, and then wherever the ascendant ruling planet is, whatever house it's in, whatever sign it's in, that starts to tell you the overarching theme of the person's life. Of course, you can make it more complicated, but as a starting point, that's a great place to begin. Points number 2 and 3 are a little interchangeable. They have to do with the sun and the moon. So the 3 keys to chart interpretation are really grounded around the ascendant, the sun, and the moon. So I always start with the ascendant, and then whether I go next to the moon or the sun depends on whether I'm working with a day chart or a night chart. So if you're working with a day chart, I would hot foot it over to the sun as my next port of call. If I'm working with a night chart, I would focus on the moon. Point number 3 will be whichever one you didn't do in point number 2. So how to figure out if it's a day chart or a night chart, this is all determined by the placement of the sun. And what you do is you either draw or imagine a line connecting the ascendant and the descendant point in the chart. Depending on the house system you're using, there may be a line there or not, but if there isn't, create one. What you want to do is look above that line or below that line and find out where the sun is in the chart. If the sun is above that line, it's a day chart, and you would use the sun in point number 2. If the sun is below that line, it doesn't matter where the moon is, just if the sun is below, then it's a night chart, and the moon becomes the dominant light, if you like. So point number 2, if it's a day chart, I'd focus on the sun. And if it's a night chart, I'd focus on the moon, and then flip that for point number 2. So you're going to talk about both the luminaries pretty early on. And what I would look for with the sun and moon is sign and house placement. Now, with the sun, most people tend to know what their sun sign is or some of the qualities of that. So I might focus on a house or a key aspect involving the sun. And for the moon, I would definitely talk about the moon sign, because that's often a new piece of information for people. And then the moon will also have a phase that will feed into not just the interpretation of the moon, but the pulse in the whole chart. I call the moon phase the pulse of personality. And that's actually one of the topics I'll be covering in my online class starting Monday, October 30. So with the moon, talk about the sign, talk about the phase if you're familiar with that, and then of course pick 1 or 2 key aspects. By the time you move through interpreting the ascendant ruling planet, and then the sun and moon, you will find that really fleshes out, potentially a portion of your consult. So 3 keys to get you started, considering that sun, moon, and ascendant. One of the questions I often get from students is, how do those 3 all work together? Which is more important? Which is less important? And to answer that question, I always think about an onion. Not because I want to remember how much my eyes sting, but because an onion is one of those wonderful vegetables that has many, many layers to it. And I often think about this as like the onion of our psyche or the onion of our personality. And that outer layer, the skin, it's a red onion, a white onion, or a brown onion, that is the ascendant energy. It's what you see first, it's what you feel first, it's what you interact with first. So that's where the ascendant, that's why I think it's a good starting place. It's the first expression of the light and the essence of your being. Once we've had a connection with the ascendant, the skin, then we go in. And in those middle layers, we tend to get things like the sun, maybe the ascendant ruling planet, and possibly the other planets in there too. In the very center of the onion is going to be the moon. As our more sort of private or tender or introspective piece. So if you think about the ascendant as the skin of the onion, the sun and maybe the ascendant ruling planet in the middle, and then the moon maybe in the very center, can start to just give you a conceptual framework for how these different layers come together. And when you're explaining this to a client in a consult, it's good to be able to say, okay, because you say to the client, oh, this ascendant sign is really important. And they're like, well, isn't my sun sign really important? And you have to be able to create a framework about how the two relate. So hopefully that onion image works for you. And then if you'd like to learn more about chart interpretation, join me next week. We are coming into our final of a series of 3 blocks of 4 classes. You don't have to have done the first 2 blocks of 4 to join us. You will be ideal for this class if you're an intermediate student and you already have some exposure to aspects, or you're a senior student or a practitioner who wants to brush up or do a bit of a refresher course on some of the chart interpretation features. Now, this class is actually a really special class because we will be looking at those extras. You know, once you've got the meat and potatoes, I know what the planets are, I know what the signs and houses, I've even got a good grasp on aspects. Now I need to figure out A, how to pull it all together, and B, what are those little extras that can give me a little bit more detail or really help me understand the subtleties in someone's psyche or personality. That's what we'll be covering in this class. Those things include the moon phases, and we'll be taking about a class to a class and a half on the moon phases. We'll also be looking at how to figure out the best and worst aspect in a chart. You know, what is the aspect that kind of indicates most potential? Or what is the aspect that can give us some of our biggest challenges or hurdles to overcome? And to do that piece, we'll be drawing on the Hellenistic ideas of sect and some of the conditions of bonification and maltreatment. So that's sort of how the Hellenistics really determined which aspects could really elevate a planet and which aspects might create some tension. So we're going to just highlight that, almost like a specialized approach to aspects, if you like. So you want to already have a bit of an understanding of what aspects are coming into this class. And then finally, we're also going to take a little time and I'm going to introduce the fixed stars and how you might incorporate those. And I'll present some charts where we're just looking at 3 or 4 fixed stars. So you're not going to get overwhelmed by it. I'll introduce the concept so you understand what fixed stars are. I'll show you how to incorporate them into your class work, or your chart work, and give you a few tips about what I've seen, and you can add that into your astrological toolbox as well. So if that sounds interesting, please pop over and sign up via the link below. If you've got any questions, you can post them here too, or shoot me an email. I'm happy to check in with you if you're not sure if this is the right class for you. So it's a 4-week online class. It's a little bit weird in terms of what online classes normally are, because I will be running a video class live each week that you can come and sit in on. You can ask questions in, you can discuss with your fellow students. The time zone or the local recording time for that won't suit everyone. And if you can't make the live recording, you will have access to the course page. Everyone who signs up gets the login where you can view the class, listen to the audio, watch the video, grab the handouts, and you'll also be able to access your homework assignments. And for those of you who have studied with me in the past, you'll know that if you do take the time or make the effort to submit your homework, which is usually a written exercise that gives you a chance to practice and integrate whatever we've covered in class, I will give you some direct and personal feedback, which is really invaluable to your learning process. So any questions, let me know. If you want to sign up, you can do that via the link below. And good luck with your astrological chart interpretation. Bye for now.